The bad things in Hollywood didn't bother Howard. He's now telling everything. He was sued for millions of dollars. Players almost died on his sets, and family secrets almost broke up his marriage. The best-known director in the United States finally tells the truth about his hard trip. On March 1st, 1954, Ron Howard was born in Duncan, Oklahoma, a small town. It was hard for his dad, Rance, to make it as an actor and writer. Jennifer, his mom, was also a performer. Not many dollars. Actually, things were pretty tough. Although, they did move to Hollywood in 1958, when Ron was only 4 years old. They were trying to reach their goal of getting better playing jobs. It was uncertain. They didn't have any promises. They ended up in a small house in Burbank and were just trying to make ends meet, while taking care of their little boy with red hair. Strangely, they lived near a big studio. Growing up, Ron saw players, cameras, and movie sets almost every day. He went to a different kind of preschool. He instead learned on movie sets, where he watched everything and slowly became a part of that world. The big move to California changed more than just where they lived. It also changed their whole future in a way that no one had planned. Ron first starred in a movie called Frontier Woman on January 4th, 1956. He was only 18 months old at the time. It was not intended. Ron was chosen because his dad needed a baby for a short scene. Just seeing a baby crawl across a set was the beginning of something very big. Still, his parents were having a hard time with money, most notably since his dad had just recently retired from the Air Force. Ron was even in a live stage play by July 15, 1956. But his parents didn't want him to be treated like other child stars, even though he was seen more. Before he turned 5, they wouldn't sign any long-term deals. That choice almost cost them everything they had. Rance thought about giving up acting and becoming a farmer in Oklahoma in 1957 because they were so poor. They stayed even though it was hard because they thought it was best for their son. Ron's folks made one rule very clear from 1954 on. Do not play full-time until he is at least 5 years old. Back in 1957 and 1958, they had to turn down good offers even though they couldn't pay the rent. They needed to pawn things to keep going. They were really thinking about leaving Hollywood by the end of 1958, but they didn't. Ron turned 5 years old in 1959, and things began to change slowly. He was chosen to be in a movie that year called The Journey. It wasn't all good when his name showed up in the credits for the first time. Other people on the set made fun of his red hair and freckles. Freckle-faced freak was one of the names they used for him. He was very sad about it. His dad was also working on the set, and he got into a fight with a crew member that almost cost him his job. Even though the job paid only $2,500, it meant a lot to them. In the same year, on April 20th, his younger brother Clint was born. Lack of cash was still a problem. They owed so much money that it's worth about $5,000 today. Even so, Ron's folks were determined to keep him safe. Keeping him in public school was easy. As the stress level rose, they let him be a kid as much as they could. After that, a big event happened in 1960. Ron got a part on The Andy Griffith Show as Opie Taylor. Little guy was only 6 years old. The casting took a long time and was hard work. Over 300 kids tried out, but Ron's natural charm made him stand out. It was a big hit when it first aired on October 3rd, 1960. The show had 249 episodes, and Ron was in 243 of them. He was paid $300 for each show until the end. Through the end of the show in 1968, he was making $1,000 each episode. But all that success brought a lot of stress. He was only a kid, but he had to learn his lines, be on time, and do a great job. They didn't have a live crowd, so they had to time every joke and scene perfectly. His learning went quickly, though it wasn't easy. On the show, things seemed more simple, and Ron's role made everyone feel safe and warm. People loved him because of that. In reality, though, he was growing up very quickly. A lot of things happened between Ron and the show's star, Andy Griffith. Andy wasn't just a co-star. He behaved like a teacher. When they were not filming, he would tell Ron stories and describe scenes. They became close when Ron was 6 years old and got stronger over time. It wasn't always quiet, though. Andy had a problem with drinking, and Ron sometimes saw him get into fights on set. It was unsettling. Anders once read aloud a bad review and got mad in front of everyone. Even so, he was still nice to Ron. He helped him with intense scenes and respected Ron. Years later, in 1997, Andy even went to see Ron on a Queen's movie set. Following Andy's death in 2012, they learned that they were related but not related by blood. The shocking and sweet news made their long-lasting love feel even stronger. 14 years ago, Ron, who was 8 years old at the time, almost drowned while practicing on a lake. A small boat scene of fishing was being filmed when something went wrong. Ron went overboard when the boat turned over. It happened, and Andy Griffith jumped in right away. Harry took Ron away. Some people worked on the show and didn't want anyone else to know because it could hurt its image. It was quiet because of this. But Ron always remembered it. There weren't any rules about safety back then. Kids could work nonstop. And accidents happened often. When Ron almost drowned, it changed him. After many years, when he started making movies, he made sure that every set had safety plans. At the end of the Andy Griffith Show in 1968, Ron was 14 years old. Instead of getting more parts, though, he was turned down. More than 50 tryouts in 1968 and 1969 failed. It looked like everyone still saw him as Opie. He felt stifled. He told his parents that he was leaving. It was a lot less than what he used to make. But he took small parts like Gentle Ben in 1969 for only $500 an episode. His role in The Wild Country ended in 1970. Bad things kept happening. He became a member of the Smith family in 1971 and made $8,000 for 39 shows. Not surprisingly, the show failed. All of this rejection made him anxious, but he hid it from other people. He also played basketball in high school and averaged 12 points per game in 1972. Though he tried to act like any other kid, he felt stuck inside. Something new happened in 1973. At age 19, Ron got a part in the movie American Graffiti. George Lucas was in charge of making it. In June, filming began in California. Outwardly, it looked exciting, but things were really tough on the inside. He was picked on by co-stars Harrison Ford and Paul Lammett. They shouted, "Dance, Opie, dance," and threw beer bottles at his car on July 15th. His practices were canceled on July 20th because they locked him in a trailer. They even put drugs in his drinks. That's because he was a kid star, and they didn't care about that. Ron did not speak. Later, he said it was the only time he had ever been Opie-shamed. He made it through everything and got $10,000. Ford said sorry many years later, but the hurt stayed with him. Back in 1970, Ron met Cheryl Alley while they were both in high school. On their first date, November 1st, word got around that Cheryl was pregnant by December. There were only 16 of them. The rumors went crazy. Lied about it in the school newspaper in January 1971. Newspapers covered it in February. The incident cost him a $2,000 TV guest part. That broke Cheryl's heart, but they stayed together. Ron put it forward 3 times. It was finally in October 1974 that she said yes. It happened on June 7, 1975. Their relationship has lasted 50 years. It's common for Ron to call her his lucky charm. For some reason, money was still an issue after Andy Griffith. Ron began bringing newspapers to people in January 1971. Every day before school, he turned in 200 papers and got $150 a month. He had to get Cheryl out of there for money. On April 5, 1971, though, he was hit from behind by a truck on his way to an interview. He hurt his neck and had to put off his next part. Costs for medical care reached $3,000. He had no health insurance. He even made $200 by selling his bike. He was in pain for years, and it showed in later movie scenes and how he moved. Ron didn't make as much money as he should have, even after American Graffiti became a huge hit in 1973. In the US, the movie made $115 million, even though it only cost $777,000. However, Ron only got $10,000 and didn't get any of the money that was made. 1% was what he asked George Lucas for, worth a lot more than $1 million. Lucas said no because it had a negative effect on their friendship. Since Ron needed a steady source of income in 1974, he had to get a job on Happy Days for $1,000 per show. His work got better again after that show, and it led him to become a director. Ron Howard started playing Richie Cunningham on the brand new TV show Happy Days in January 1974. At the time, he was only 19 years old. It started on January 15th with the very first show, and 11 million people watched it. At first, the show was mostly about Richie's life as a teenager in Milwaukee in the 1950s. But things began to change in 1976. The big star was Fonzie, played by Henry Winkler. ratings suddenly went through the roof. It quickly became the most-watched show, with 31 million people each week. Those in charge at ABC came up with a new plan that same year. They wanted to change the show Fonzie's Happy Days to make money off of Fonzie's growing popularity. Things with Fonzie on them made more than $1 million just in 1976. It wasn't okay with Ron Howard, though. He had been the star from the start, but now somebody else was taking the spotlight. In November 1976, he told the producers they had to do something. Changing the title would make him quit. He was ready to quit, even though his contract didn't end until 1980. A lot of things almost broke. The news then got out to Variety magazine on December 5th, and fans were very angry. Extraordinary 10,000 letters poured into ABC. The show's heart wasn't wanted to be lost. ABC compromised. The first title was kept, and Howard stayed. But now something was different for good. In 1977, the show was bringing in $50 million a year. But Howard was only getting $25,000 an episode, while Winkler was making $75,000 an episode. Howard said in an interview in 1980 that this was a turning point. The experience made him think more about directing. There wasn't any peace on the set either. As the show reached its peak in 1976 and 1977, the actors began to fight over money and screen time. Potsy's actor, Anson Williams, was getting $12,000 per show. Half of what Ron Howard made was that. He was angry and envious. Williams allegedly stormed off the set of an episode called The Muckrakers on November 16, 1976. The author of the show, Gary Marshall, changed a scene to help Howard. A few people thought it was unfair. People said there was a fight, but it was never proven. The $50 million machine that ABC was trying to protect tried to stay quiet. Things got even messy in 2012 after all these years. Other cast members, including Williams, sued CBS for $10 million in unpaid earnings. They said they never got their fair share of the goods. There were more than 5 million Happy Days lunchboxes sold in 1976 alone. On April 4, 2012, the case was over. They all got only $65,000 each. It was Williams who said he never made even $100,000 a year, while the companies did. Howard wasn't a part of the case, but he did say in an interview in 2025 that those events almost made Friends break up. Howard made his first short film in secret in early 1975, while he was still playing on Happy Days. The name of it was Deed of Daring Do, and it was only 10 minutes long. During a 2-week break in March, he shot it with only $2,000 in cash. There was an appearance by Henry Winkler, too. The film was shown for the first time at a small event on June 15, 1975. Someone was said to have accused him of copying, but it was never proven. Laws about copyright were not clear back then. A fanfic case in 1976 actually made other writers pay up to $5,000 to settle, but Howard wasn't involved. His world was really shaken when, on April 20, 1975, director Roger Corman asked for more filming. It added $500 to his bill, which almost broke his budget. On September 10th, the movie got a small award at the Atlanta Film Festival. In 1977, he directed Grand Theft Auto after working on this small project. It had a budget of $600,000, but made $15 million. As a senior in high school, Howard married Cheryl Alley on June 7, 1975. For only $800, the wedding in Burbank was perfect. An estimated 300 people attended, and Henry Winkler served as the best man. The cost was covered by Cheryl's dad. Howard made $25,000 a show, but he only wanted a simple wedding. Beginning on June 8, 1975, they spent 2 weeks in Hawaii on their honeymoon. In 1977, there were reports that tabloids leaked private photos and began stories about cheating, but there's no real proof. In late 1978, the worst of the rumors started to spread. On October 15th, the National Enquirer spread reports that someone was cheating. Howard said it was embarrassing. His 50th wedding gift was a kissing chair that made them think of their first love, he said in an interview in 2025. When July 1980 came around, Ron Howard did something brave. He stopped watching Happy Days. 20 million people watched the show every week, but Howard wanted more. ABC asked him if he could be in charge of TV movies. He turned them down and was given $100,000 for 3 more years. He turned down my request. He contracted with NBC for $1 million on July 20, 1980. His new deal gave him complete freedom to be creative. Before the eighth season started on September 9th, 1980, he left Happy Days. Surprised fans. ABC got 15,000 letters asking him to come back by August. Later, Howard said that ABC was mean to him, like an eagle stealing a baby. Following his departure, Night Shift, which came out in 1982, was his first major work. He made $21 million. But the show changed all the time. Ratings dropped by 30% when Richie wasn't on. After 255 shows, it kept going until 1984. Howard was only 23 years old when he directed Grand Theft Auto in 1977. He acted in it and wrote it with his dad, Rance. When it came out on June 16th, it was a surprise hit, making $15 million. One car stunt, though, went horribly wrong while they were recording. Stuntman Paul Bartle was hurt very badly. He hurt his insides and broke bones. Howard was scared that his job as a director would end before it even started. He quietly ended the case in 1978. That accident haunted him. For future projects, he put safety first. Howard directed Splash in 1984. It came out in cinemas on March 9th. Production cost $11 million, and it made $69.8 million. It made Tom Hanks famous. Strange things happened behind the scenes, though. Hanks had temper tantrums, mostly when the plot was changed. They got into a screaming match on July 15, 1983, while they were shooting in New York. Howard stepped in to get them to stop fighting. The movie was almost canceled, but Disney's new Touchstone name saved it. Howard got a death threat from an angry extra named Harold Jenkins in 1985 while shooting Cocoon in Florida. Jenkins, who had been fired, sent mail on February 12 threatening harm. He thought the movie made fun of old people. 24-hour protection cost Fox $150,000. The story was toned down, and the movie won't come out until June 21st. Still, it made $85 million at the box office and won Oscars for Donna Mesh and visual effects. Willow was released on May 20, 1988. George Lucas had the idea in 1972, and Howard directed it on a $35 million budget. It made $137.6 million around the world, but it still lost $20 million because of too much advertising and mixed reviews. Lucas and Howard always fought. They fought over $5 million in cuts in June 1987. Hello, Howard. I was almost done quitting. In the end, home video helped it make a profit. Howard put out Parenthood on August 2, 1989. He got the idea from a crazy trip to Australia with his 4-year-old daughter, who threw up sushi on him in the middle of the flight. It made $126 million on its $20 million budget. She sued Howard in May 1989, though, saying he stole her story. He settled for $500,000. The case almost kept the movie from coming out. Howard was in charge of the 1991 firefighter story backdraft. Something bad happened on July 23, 1990. There was a huge fire, and Kurt Russell's hand and face were burned. OSHA looked into the claims and found major safety violations. 3 other people on the group were also hurt. Howard said the next day that they didn't know when the fire would come back and attack. Whatever, the movie made $152 million, and were nominated for an Oscar for visual effects. Moonrock came out on June 30, 1995. Around the world, it made $355 million. But shooting was hard. Tom Hanks wanted everything to be correct, right down to the NASA records. Starting on October 12, 1994, he insisted on rewriting the plot. The work had to stop on October 15th, which cost $2 million. Howard said he was going to quit on October 18th. Someone from NASA had to mediate. In 1996, the film won Oscars for music and editing. It made $309 million when Ransom came out on November 8, 1996. However, while shooting in early 1996, Howard got scary threats that were similar to those in the movie. Someone sent letters to his kids on February 14th, frightening them. They called the FBI. Some sketchy cars and tapped phones were discovered close to his home. On March 5th, the family had to move. Even though no one was caught, the suspects left California in April. Howard later said that this let him make the movie that was most personal for him. On November 17, 2000, Jim Carrey starred in the movie The Grinch. $345 million were made. But shooting was very rough. Makeup took 2.5 hours every day for Carey. It happened on March 22nd. He argued with Howard and hit him. There was no filming for a day. Carey later said she would behave better by April. It paid off in 2001, when the movie won an Oscar for makeup. Howard's movie A Beautiful Mind came out on December 21st, 2001. It detailed John Nash's fight with schizophrenia. It earned $313 million and won Best Picture and Best Director at the 2002 Oscars. But there was tension on the set. Russell Crowe got very angry at times. His last act was throwing a phone at a hotel worker on June 10th. It got so bad that Howard fired him on April 15th. He hired him back 2 days later, though, so he wouldn't lose $500,000 a day. Beverly Nash's wife, Jennifer Connelly, said Howard kept everything together even when things went wrong. The Da Vinci Code, a movie by Ron Howard, made a lot of noise around the world in 2006. Many religious groups, especially the Catholic Church, were very angry. According to the story, Jesus married Mary Magdalene and had a child with her. A group called Opus Dei was said to have hidden this fact. A lot of people in many countries spoke out against this. Christians in India wanted it to be illegal. It was only for adults in the Philippines. During the May 17th Cannes premiere, there was a bomb scare, and Ron Howard received death threats and had to hire protection. During the showing, critics both booed and laughed. Opus Dei asked Sony on February 14th to add a fiction disclaimer, saying that the movie was a skewed picture of the church. Washington, D.C. The film was called morally offensive by Catholic priests on a website called JesusDecoded.com. The movie made $760 million around the world, even though it caused a lot of trouble. Howard later said, though, that the constant anger over it was annoying. Howard and author Dan Brown almost got arrested in Italy for shooting without permission. People were told not to watch it by the Vatican because it was anti-Catholic, which made more people interested. In 2017, production on Solo got a mess. A story about Star Wars. The first directors, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, were fired in June because they couldn't come up with a good idea that worked with Lucasfilm. It was decided that Ron Howard could save the project. He had to reshoot about 70% of the movie between late June and mid-October in order to finish it on time for May 2018. The price went up to $275 million because of this. Some people said Howard ruined the movie by taking out the fun and risky style and adding a more classic Star Wars feel in its place. There were even court cases. Alden Ehrenreich was one of the players who needed help getting into character. It took longer to come out. Lord and Miller chose not to take credit as directors, but as executive producers instead. Fans were upset, and some even started online efforts to get Howard fired. Insiders say he didn't pay attention to the earlier footage, which led to fights on set. Even though it made $393 million, the movie did not do nearly as well as people had hoped. Some people said Howard might have been too safe. In 2009, Angels and Demons caused Ron Howard more trouble. The movie made the Catholic Church look like the bad guys by making up a crazy story about the Illuminati and how antimatter was threatening Rome. On May 3rd, Howard said that the Vatican had secretly told him he couldn't film in churches. That meant his team had to make fakes. He thought that this secret boycott dropped his earnings by $50 million. Later, the Vatican's paper said the movie was safe, but at first, they didn't want to back it. Back in April, Archbishop Valesio de Paula said that protests could make things worse, like what happened with the Da Vinci Code. One more Catholic leader, William Donahue, told people not to boycott, but to tell the truth. Some churches even wouldn't let the film crew in because the story involved killings. It still made $485 million, and Tom Hanks said it was meant to make people curious, not angry. The Vatican was mostly quiet in this movie, unlike the first one. Imagine Entertainment, run by Ron Howard, was sued in 2015 over the movie The Good Lie, which came out in 2014. 54 refugee families from Sudan said their real-life pain was used in the movie without paying them. Their case was 101 pages long and was filed in Atlanta on February 19th. They said that in return for $55,000 and a promise of help, they had told heartbreaking stories about going hungry and running away from militias. Reese Witherspoon starred in the movie, which came out on October 3rd, but the refugees said they never saw a dime. People said that producers Bobby Newmeyer and Mike Nagel broke their agreement. Fans were shocked when they learned that Howard's team had raised a lot of money to help refugees. The case was settled in 2017 through a secret deal. Howard wasn't named, but there was a lot of anger. In the US, the movie only made $3.2 million, but it made a big impact because it was based on a true story. There was a terrible accident in 2013 while shooting Rush. It was based on a real Formula One race from 1976. An actor named David Crowder was hurt while reenacting Niki Lauda's fiery crash. A suspension failed on August 1st while filming the burning wreck at Nürburgring, and the car was destroyed. It was so much like the real event that it scared me. Crowder filed a lawsuit, saying that safety was not taken into account. A deal was made to end the case in 2014. Things got worse when the son of the film's stunt planner, Sean Edwards, died in a crash on September 27th, just 18 days after the movie came out. Howard was called in and asked tough questions about how he cut corners on the $38 million project's $38 million budget. Although Rush made $90 million, many people thought it glamorized danger too much, especially since real crash video of Lauda's injuries was used. In August 2025, Bryce Dallas Howard, Ron's daughter, took the Nepo baby issue head-on. She was born on March 2, 1981, and talked about her Hollywood fame on a show called Happy, Sad, Confused. Family members who worked in the business included her dad, Ron, her uncle Clint, born in 1959, her grandfather Rance, who lived from 1928 to 2017, and her grandmother Jean, who lived from 1927 to 2000. She said that doors opened for her easy, but she also said that she worked very hard. Fans online had different thoughts. Others wondered if Ron had helped her get parts, while others praised her for being honest. Ron never told the public that he hired her, but Bryce kept saying that family ties were a big reason. BuzzFeed liked how open she was in 2025, especially when compared to other stars who say they have no edge. Henry Winkler is her uncle, which was a surprise. After directing several movies and starring in Jurassic World, which made over $1.6 billion in 2015, she was ready. His name was Rance Howard, and he died on November 25, 2017, at the age of 89. After getting the West Nile virus, he had heart failure. The 17th of November, 1928 saw the birth of Harold Beckenholt. Rance began playing in 1949 and has been in more than 140 movies and 177 TV shows. Ron and Clint Rance, his boys, wrote a touching tribute to him in People, saying that Rance's love of acting had changed their family for good. Some of the movies he was in are Chinatown and Nebraska. There were reports that Clint and Ron got into a fight over the will, but there was never any real proof. Everything instead showed that the boys had a strong bond with each other. There was even a tweet about how lucky Ron was to have Clint as a brother. They worked on a lot of projects together, like the 1977 game Grand Theft Auto. For some reason, Rance kept playing right up until the end. An important part of his life was over 36 hours before he died. Ron Howard and Cheryl Howard were married for 50 years on June 7, 2025. They connected for the first time in high school, at California's John Burroughs High School in Burbank. This couple's very first date happened on November 1, 1970. Watched It's a Mad, 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 Mad World and ate pizza. Through Instagram, Ron talked about how grateful he was for all the good and bad times they had been through together. Their 4 children were born between 1981 and 1987, Bryce, Paige, and Jocelyn as twins, and Reed by themselves. By 2025, they had 6 grandchildren. There were rumors that they were about to get a divorce in the 1980s because Ron was so focused on work, but no current interview has confirmed it. I thought they were weaker than ever. Ron told them in 2020 that no one else was ever right for him. When they reenacted their first date in their old 1970 VW Bug, it was the sweetest moment. Cheryl played the fun grandmother who broke all the rules for the grandchildren. In 2011, Ron Howard got in trouble for a line in his movie The Dilemma, which came out on January 14th. In a joke, Vince Vaughn's character said that electric cars were gay, but not in a sexual way. After a student named Tyler Clementi killed himself in September 2010, Glad and Ellen DeGeneres said the joke was hurtful because it encouraged bullying. Trailers for Universal movies stopped making fun of the joke on October 30th. Howard did leave it in the movie, though. He said taking out the joke would hurt the comedy because it fit the character's attitude. He told the BBC in January that he didn't expect such a strong response, but he later understood how the word could hurt people. It was called a dangerous term by people like Anderson Cooper and Glad. Howard said that he was sensitive, but he didn't want to stop people from sharing stories. Although the movie made $69.7 million, the joke was still a sore spot. According to 2020, Ron directed Hillbilly Elegy for Netflix. There was a movie on November 24th that was based on J.D., a biography by Vance. Glenn Close played the grandmother, and Amy Adams played the mom. Adams was nominated for an Oscar and won a Razzie for her part. The movie cost $45 million to make. On Rotten Tomatoes, critics only gave it a 26% rating, but viewers gave it an 82% rating. According to Howard, he was shocked when Vance became Trump's running mate in 2024, Vulture, August 2025. He stated that Vance seemed reasonable while they were filming in 2018 and 2019. Even Vance had said that Trump was bad in 2016. Howard told them. He told Vance he was happy for him in a cold text message on November 6, 2024. He stated that the movie was not a total success. People didn't like it, but fans really liked it. Howard thought Vance's change in morals was the biggest surprise. On September 7th, Ron's 2025 movie Eden had its world premiere at the Toronto Film Festival. Jude Law, Ana de Armas, Vanessa Kirby, Daniel Bruhl, and Sydney Sweeney were in the movie, which used to be called Origin of the Species. It was based on a crazy true story from the Galapagos Islands in the 1920s about murder caused by jealousy and betrayal. Starting on November 27, 2023, filming took place mostly in Queensland, with some shots also happening in the Galapagos. It ended on February 14, 2024. The budget was $55 million at the start. Australia's tax breaks helped bring it down to $35 million. Howard told someone on August 25 that the true story made him nervous while shooting it. Based on a real event that happened in 1934, one shocking scene showed a woman giving birth by herself and tragically dying. It got mixed reviews. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a score of 68%, and some people said it was silly, sexy, and dark. Howard said that it was a story that should teach people not to be alone, especially after COVID. In the real case, there was a baroness and 2 murders, which Howard kept in the story but made a little less intense. Ron was nominated for his first Emmy in 2025 for his role in the comedy Seth Rogen directed called The Studio. July 15th, 23 people nominated the show. Ron played himself in a funny, over-the-top way. In episode 3, which aired on March 14th, they yelled at each other and even got punched. In fact, he hadn't been on TV since Happy Days finished in 1984. He told people on September 6th that he was too scared to win because of something that happened to him in 1995. The movie only made $48 million at the box office back then, even though it cost $30 million to make. Ron said it was because they didn't listen to a psychic's warning. On Instagram, he made fun of the fact that he hadn't won an acting award in 195 TV years. He was nominated for 14 Emmys in total. He'd won 3 as a director already. The fight scenes in the show were improvised, which was shocking, and Howard really did get a bruised rib in January 2025.